Welcome to Challenge 8. Today we are going to be talking about discussions. If you teach a fully online class, then you're probably already familiar with discussions being a key way that students have student-to-student interaction with each other. So today we'll look at some of those intricacies about Lamaku discussions. The first area is just simply knowing how many different settings there are that impact discussion. There are 5. So knowing where they are will be helpful to you because you might be going along and not understand why you programmed a discussion setting in one area to do one thing, but then when you actually get to the discussion, it's not doing it. So there are some settings to be aware of. There are some conflicting settings to be aware of. And we need to know what to do if a student needs an extension about a discussion. I'm inside discussions, and right here alone there are 3 setting levels. There's the main discussions level, there's the forum or kind of like a category level, and then there's the actual topic or the individual discussion thread. Let's take a look. So the main discussions is fairly comprehensive. You can see some of the things that you're able to do here. If I leave here and I go to the forum level, I'm going to go to Edit Forum. I can see that I have some other settings, and these would apply to all of the various topics within the forum. Notice this is a very common one. Users must start a thread before they can read reply to others. Also, there are restrictions posted here as well that you could set for the forum. Inside the forum, so for this Talk Story 16, I could actually have topic level settings. So these are very, common for the discussions, but just to see what they are. Notice, for example, that there's the same learners must start a thread before they can view or reply to other threads. So backing up, the best thing to do is to set your discussion level settings from the top so that they trickle down and they hit all of your forums and all of your discussion topics within those forums. However, there are other places to be aware of that you might also change your discussion settings. One is in your account settings. So if I click on the account settings and I go to account settings proper, I will see the discussion tab and I see some of those other settings we just saw. Okay, so this is the 4th place where there are settings, but wait, there's more. If we go to course admin, if we're in course admin and we go to site setup, availability, date defaults, I'm also going to have another set of settings for discussions. Usually the main settings that you would program at the settings level, so the account settings level, or the one we just saw, or even the main discussion settings up here, should trickle down to all of the individual forum and topics that you have within those forums. So the other thing to note, and we saw this, and I'm going to go into an actual discussion topic for this one, is that we have both the learners must start a thread before they can view or reply to other threads. And we also have end dates. So an end date is if I had a discussion and I wanted to stop my students posting, say the due date was Thursday, and I was like, all right, you have to post by Thursday at 11:59 p.m. Otherwise, you can view the topics, but you're not going to be able to submit anything. That way, let's say someone doesn't participate, but they can still read and review prior to an exam or a project. That sounds great. So it says visible with submission restricted. However, I won't actually be able to read the thread, right? Because learners must start a thread before they can post or review to others. So just keep in mind that if you are thinking, okay, I'm going to be nice, and even though students don't get their work in on time, I'll still let them follow and review the conversation. If you have the learners must start a thread and you also set an end date, those settings are going to interact. And no, students will not be able to see the discussion, even though the end date setting says, yes, they should be able to. This post and completion setting is going to override that. So that's just one thing to know about if you use discussions and if you use the learners must start a thread before they can view or reply to other threads. And the last thing to note, unlike assignments or quizzes, discussions were created differently by DTL Brightspace. So You cannot add a due date for your discussions. As you see, there is no area here to set a due date for a discussion. But this also means that you are unable to give students extensions. So let's just say a student, has something going on and they ask if they can have extra days. There's no way to individually assign students an extension. It's kind of an all or nothing thing. So you have to leave the discussions open so students can see them and they can still post to them. This is kind of problematic if you have students who qualify for accommodation, and by law, they should be given extensions. There isn't quite a way to do that. So just take note that if you use discussions and you do have students who need the extra time, there is no way, unlike assignments and unlike quizzes, to give them extra time. Second, a kind of unique feature about discussions in Lamaku is that discussions currently don't have due dates. So unlike assignments and unlike quizzes in Lamaku, you have to manually create due dates, both your initial post and then people often do the responses. So the post and the response due dates in the calendar as events. This means that they don't actually trigger the gradebook. So let's take a look at this. So here I am in the calendar, and what I did is I created these these talk story is what I called them. The initial post, which is usually due earlier in the week, so in this case I make the initial post due Thursday, and then the responses to the classmates, the reply, is due by Sunday. These were done by using create event. So discussions, for whatever reason, in Lamaku, in Brightspace, are not considered the same as assignments or quizzes. So you have to create an event and then use this to program your due dates. You can add a recurrence. This is very helpful. So if I have a 16-week course, I can go ahead and say, yep, go ahead and repeat this for 15, after the initial one, for 15 weeks, and it'll end on whatever date I want to end it on. So that is helpful. Third, we'll do what we normally do when we create activities. We link the discussions to grades. So as we did before with assignments, we just want to make sure that we are linked to the gradebook, and I know that we are because I see the little link and it says in gradebook. But just a reminder, if you didn't see this and you needed to link it, you would simply use the drop down and say edit or link existing, and we want to go to what has already been created, and it is sample talk story, and I'm good to go. I could click OK and I'd be connected to the gradebook. But a strange thing about discussions is because there is no due date, the grades area does not recognize late work for discussions. So if students turned in an assignment or quiz late, if I allowed them to do that, maybe I deduct points, for example. I usually get a red badge that says late work, but with discussions, if you leave the discussions open for the entire term, students could submit, but it's up to you to check the date stamp as you're grading to see if they turned it in on time. If you subtract or deduct points for late work that comes in late, it's up to you as the instructor to kind of be the eagle eye and check the date and time stamp to make sure the work was turned in on time. And lastly, now that we have kind of an updated learning management system, there are some really cool features that can kind of jazz up your discussions and bring them into the 21st century and make them more like social media, which students will like. So here I am in the actual discussion topic, and I'm acting as a student. So this is exactly what they would see. If I scroll down, here's the entire post, and here's where, as a student, I would put in my subject line, and I can start crafting my discussion with the full editor toolbar here. But into the 21st century, note that students are able to record both video and audio. So you could have students, especially in a fully online course that's asynchronous, humanize the experience, get to know their classmates a little better, even though they're not in a face-to-face on-site classroom, by contributing video discussion topics, and or even leaving what we would call podcast, right, that other students can listen to. And students sometimes, when it's a little more social media-esque, put a little more oomph into the activity versus if they're just typing, a paragraph or a couple paragraphs up for their discussion. And it's all right here. All the equipment is right here in Lamaku. The other area that students can have some fun with is under evaluation and feedback, and allow learners to rate post. So there's a 5-star rating, there's up and down, or there's just thumbs up. So the most collegial setting would be just upvote only. But this is fun because students like liking other students' posts. It's like social media. But you can also have some fun with it as an instructor by perhaps creating a kind of People's Choice Award. So the students can upvote or give stars to their classmates, and whoever comes out with the most maybe gets extra credit or doesn't have to do the next discussion or whatever you want to do. So you can set this here in the actual topic, but you might want to do it if this is something you want to do continuously from the main discussions settings. So you can go here and under default rating scheme, you can go ahead and do no ratings at all, but here's if you want to blanket everything in all of your discussions in your forums, you can go ahead and do it this way. So this is a great way, both options, the upvoting or 5-star voting, and or using video or audio are great ways to just kind of mix up your discussions from week to week. Alrighty, that was setting up discussions, all the different unique features. So if you are finished, then you are only 2 challenges away from being done with our challenge series. Mahalo.